Welcome everyone who's joining us now. We're just gonna, we'll start the webinar in a couple of minutes. Just wait for other people to join.
Oh, I see a couple of familiar faces on the call. Exciting.
Thanks, Mark.
Bethany Vogel, I know you. Hi. Cori, this is such a small industry and small world, isn't it?
Yes, and we have good friends.
And we have good friends. We do have good friends. Pretty lucky.
Okay, thank you everyone so much for joining us. We're gonna wait maybe 2 more minutes so that everyone, it just sometimes takes a minute to get in.
Hey, Tracy, I know you too. How fun. It's like a reunion of people. Truly. Vince.
I was wondering when Vince was gonna join. I was almost gonna message him and
Like, where are you at?
yeah, where are you? Well, thank you for joining. I'm glad you were able to overcome those troubles.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining so far. It looks like we're still having a couple people trickle in, but we've got a lot to talk about, so I don't want us to have to rush. Okay, well, just some housekeeping up front. We are recording, so recording has started, and everyone who joins will get a copy of that recording, and also anyone who hasn't. So if you have a colleague or a friend who wasn't able to join, don't worry, they will get a recording, or you can forward it along to them. And we already have a fun chat going, but please, everyone, we want to keep chatting. So if you can turn your default chat from hosts and panelists to everyone, so everyone can see your comments, and yeah, please keep chatting. And if you have questions along the way, we will have some time at the end for some Q&A, but please throw them in as you think about them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll try to get to them as we go through the presentation, but we'll make sure to go over everything at the end. All right, I think those are all of our housekeeping. So now we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves. Brittany, do you want to go first?
Yeah, you bet. I'm so thrilled to be here and see some familiar names. I'm Britney Cole. I work at the Ken Blanchard companies, and I get to lead our innovation lab over there, and which is so great because what we get to do is think on and tinker on the latest in leadership developments, try new ways to reach people who need leadership and professional development skills the most. And so it's a pleasure to partner with Cori. I've worked with Mobile Coach far before my tenure at Blanchard, and really excited to talk about design thinking and chatbots today.
Thank you. Yes, and everyone, I'm Cori Richards. I, as Brittany mentioned, work at Mobile Coach, and I've been there for about 6 years. And the last I counted, have worked on, I think, over 60 chatbot projects. So I've helped a lot of organizations design and create really engaging conversations that help their learners remember and take action. And today we'll kind of be sharing the expertise that we've learned along the way. Okay, so today we'll be focusing on these 5 objectives, and I'll just go through them really quickly. Don't need to spend too much time reading from the screen, but we're going to be focusing on thinking about problems in a human-centered way, how to craft personas that can be used as the basis for who you are solving for, and then designing a chatbot that's going to blend that with messaging, performance support, crowdsourcing, scheduling. So lots of interesting features and how those relate to the problems and the people that we're solving for. And then we're going to talk about rethinking and how to rethink and plan the transformation of your resources and performance support to then align with this new chatbot delivery, and measuring the impact of your chatbot. And so specifically questions that you can incorporate within the chatbot to measure that impact. And Darren, yes, we can send the slides. So we'll send those along so you have all these resources we'll share. Okay. So first, let's, I'm really curious, keep the chat going. How many of you have used a chatbot ever? If you want to put it in the chat, or I think we have our emojis. Yes. I think people can like give me a thumbs up. I'm really curious. Oop, there we have some hands. Yeah, how many people have used a chatbot? Ooh, we have someone that hasn't. Yep, I have made Vince test many of the chatbots. Okay, so we have a lot of people that have, but a couple people that haven't. Now, how many of you that have tried a chatbot have had a bad experience? Something where it just didn't land, or it was really hard to communicate with the chatbot, just wasn't giving you the information you needed. I hope this is not a universal experience, but I've certainly had that experience, especially on a website. I always turn to the chatbot because I don't want to have to call a person. So I'm just like, well, let me get some help really fast. Oh no.
Nice, Darren.
Yeah. Those, don't always work. Yeah. So kind of our this slide, I want to just think about, if we're spending a lot of time, I think a lot of us are now turning to bots, kind of like I mentioned I do. And if we're spending all these time trying to communicate, using those as a great resource, I think they're a really good alternative. But we need to make sure that those are interfaces with a human touch, that they're made for humans to interact, and that's a good experience instead of a stressful or a frustrating one. So as we embrace this technology for learning, and I think a lot of people's examples were in customer service. So as we're embracing that technology, we want to make sure that we're designing in a human-centered way so that we're really supporting our learners and not causing more headaches, but using this as a positive. So what is a chatbot? Specifically, I want to talk about a programmatic chatbot, which is the type that I think most of us are going to be interested in using or have used for learning. So this is a chatbot that does more than just maybe a chatbot that you've used for a consumer or a marketing version, but it's something that's ideal for learning use cases because you're creating a storyboard journey for your learners to interact with over time, to give them support, to remind, to nudge them, to help them take action and change behavior. And all of this is based on a conversation that you're designing for your chatbot to have. So when we're thinking about this, we want to think not only about what we want the chatbot to do for people, but also when people are using the chatbot, what do they want out of it? What is something that they're going to need? What is the tool that they're going to be finding most useful? And we're wanting to design this with human human thinking about our end users. And so that's kind of the focus we have today, thinking about the people behind the chatbot.
That's right, Cori. And as you think about human-centric design, what you see on the screen is not necessarily anything new, but it's a framework known as design thinking. And design thinking, this is not a session on design thinking. However, as you think about the work that we do, oftentimes, whether it's with our clients or our stakeholder, our business partners within our organizations, oftentimes it's really easy to align on a solution. We need a chatbot, we need a course, we need a learning journey, whatever that thing or blend of things it might be. And for us, we tend to come into this industry because we want to be helpful. And so we solution and we start to build. And we oftentimes, if you look at this 5-phase model, we start with prototype. We just start scripting and writing it out and planning and going. And then it's not until much later we're like, we kind of missed the mark. And why do we do that? Because we do think about the end in mind, but we often do so in often a content or a feature set versus backing it up a little bit and thinking about who we're actually solving for. Who's our target audience? What do they need? And why would a chatbot and the features that are inherent within a programmatic chatbot be useful? And so if you just take a step back, and again, this isn't like how to do empathy or necessarily even how to create really good problem statements, but it's rewinding the dial a little bit and really thinking about what are others, and you can go to the next slide, as you reflect on this quote, what do others see? What do we want them to think about? What outcomes do we want them produce as a result of engaging with a chatbot or our solution? And how might we really rethink the scripts and the delivery and the timing, because we're actually thinking about that individual interacting with that chatbot, as opposed to probably the negative chatbot experiences you've had, which is, if they just want to collect my information and make me lead gen. You can almost see through what they're trying to do versus actually having a really human conversation and drawing them along. So let's kind of draw into a little bit more with the empathy phase. And again, you don't have to overthink this, but it's just that step back to think about the who. And one of the tools that we use is personas. It's a simple tool. Again, it can be like a whole engagement where you do observation and interviews. But if you go to the next slide, Cori, personas really dial and focus on 3 things. What are the goals of the audience that you're, what do they want out of their work, out of their life, out of the reason why they engage with the chatbot in the first place? What are their motives and desires? So a little bit more in intrinsic and behavioral. And what are the things that get in their way? Like what are the issues they have, say, in their work that aren't allowing them to be productive or to get things done? And how might, say, a chatbot support that experience? And when you start to use personas, you start to get a clear picture of who you're solving for. So what you see on the screen are pictures of my kids. And yeah, they're pretty darn cute, I must say. And but you feel free to use the chat blast. But what are some of the things that you're noticing as you look at these 2 pictures, aside from the fact that like they're all mini me's? What do you notice? Yeah, we're fun, we're silly, we're Vikings fans, we got Packers fans, so we like sports. They love each other most of the time. So now imagine I'm looking for a new car and I'm walking down the lot at the dealership and they see me with these sillies in tow. What are they selling me? You know it. Yes, Melena, a
Melanie.
mom van. And I love my mom van. It's the best ever. Totally, Liz. It is a minivan and safety, a safe minivan. And my persona, my picture of my face with my kids is on their wall because they can identify they're not going to talk to me about safety first, but they're going to talk to me about like, tell me about your family. I have 3 kids. I'm toting them around. I want to make sure they have their friends. And then they start to craft the features and wrap the solution around me, which ultimately leads me to that minivan with the leather seats versus the cloth, with the TV, because we're on long trips and all the things, and I'm easily sold. And that's smart marketing. And if we start to think about our work in terms of marketing to our users and engaging them in, it's going to be a lot easier to draw them into the solution that we create and the chatbot that we designed. And so here's an example of a persona. This is, again, my work typically is with leaders, self-leaders, mid-level managers, senior leaders. And so we'll talk a little bit about leadership development today. But imagine Elise, right? Elise works for a new company. She just got promoted. She's really excited. She wants to build her network. She wants to show that to her company that she was a good choice in terms of promoting. She's probably dealing with some bud to boss issues, and she's going to have to do new things as a new manager at her company, and probably also working hybrid, but she kind of has, she's in a finance job, so she's high tech. And so Elise probably represents at this company, one, maybe 2 or 3 different personas, different segments, right? She's a new leader. There's, of course, leaders at this company who are more tenured. She's in a role that probably requires her to manage a lot of details and be fairly tech savvy. She's promoted within the organization. She maybe is a little younger than maybe some other leaders. And so you're starting to think about different segments. And when you think about thinking about Elise, and we'll talk a little bit about how might a chatbot help Elise in her role as a new leader at this company, the feature set follows versus coming first. And it actually makes it so much easier to design and think of the conversation frame because you're thinking about Elise first. And so, Darren, as you said, you can do this too. In the slides, the next one is a sample that you can brainstorm. And I might even, just simply give this to your teams. And it can be, again, a full-on engagement, or it can be just a really good brainstorming tool. I'd always encourage you to bring in the target users into this conversation. But a lot of times in my day-to-day, breezing personas is a really great coffee table discussion to let us know, like, hey, we have the end user in mind. We've done some research, whether that's, talking to stakeholders in the organization, whether that's talking to users themselves. And once you orient to who you're solving for, again, it's going to be much easier to figure out your point of view and the design path that you have with your chatbot. So I'm going to high five it back over to Cori, where she's going to go a little bit more detail into that design phase or define phase.
Yes. So with this, we have our target audience, and we've talked about them, we've maybe interviewed them, we've observed them. Now it's time to think about all of that as problem statements. So what do they need? What are the issues that we're solving for? And I think the tendency here is to kind of jump again right to prototype, right to this is who we're solving for. Let's now go ahead and make the solution. But we still have a few more steps that we need to go through. So here, a great definition for your problem statement will guide you and your team and kind of get you along the process and not thinking too far ahead. So a good resource for this is our say, do, think, feel, empathy mapping. So we have these 4 key traits that we're going to think about for our target audience. And these are our 4 quadrants for our users. And so we're going to determine what are our users saying? What did they tell us if you interviewed them? What are they saying? What are you seeing them do? Which those two are a little bit easier to come up with. But then we're going to go to the harder part of determining, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? And again, this can be really helpful to have observed them, or if you have people that you can interview and talk to, see how they're behaving, how they responded to activities. If you're maybe thinking about Elise and the problems that they've gone through, we can kind of come to what here. Okay, yep, here we are. Here's Elise. So we can kind of think about what does Elise need? So here are a couple of problem statements that we might come up with, where how might we help Elise get immediate support? So the chatbot can become a really great performance support tool. What problems does she need support for? What tools does she need? And when does she need them? So we're team meetings apart where she needs them. How do we inspire Elise throughout the day? How do we get her motivated? So these are great ways to give us more brainstorming of what does Elise need. And here's some examples of more problem statements. And it's really tempting to define your problem statements from business centric, but we're actually wanting to frame this as more human centric. So again, we're wanting to stick to the real people behind the chatbot. So instead of saying we need a chatbot to lower response for support tickets, we want to transition that into the employees don't want to spend a ton of time looking for their help documents. So we need to give them a solution to make it really easy to find things. So we want to look at it more of the people that are needing these support documents versus our need to have a little less tickets for help desk. And so some good ideas would be broad enough for creative freedom. So this means the problem statement should not focus too narrowly on a specific method regarding the implementation of the solution. So we don't want to get bogged down with a list of technical requirements. And we want to, again, stay human-centered. So we want to frame our problem statements according to our specific users. So coming with our user profiles and what they need and the insights we've gained from that, and then creating our problem statements for what those people we're trying to help them with. And we also want to be narrow enough to be manageable. So we might have a pie in the sky problem statement of improve the human condition. We want to just solve everything, but that's going to be far too big. So we want to also try to get them as narrow as possible so we can really come up with a solution for them. And I kind of want to just throw in our basic ROI formula. So this ties in perfectly when we're thinking about problem statements. The first part of generating value and making sure that our chatbot, when we're creating it and we're coming up with this solution, is going to get us the ROI in the end, is by starting with what success means. So defining what we need, and that starts with defining the problem. So our problems will kind of transition into what our success is. All right, and now back to Britney.
So as you think about, and I mentioned it in chat, like define is really narrowing your focus. And this also is really helpful if designing chatbots is new to you or your organization and you're trying to really prove out that use case, because the define phase helps you in a way rank prioritize where you want to spend your time. And so as you think about Elise and those problem statements, is it, do we want to help Elise like just get the tactical pieces? Like she's going to have to approve timesheets. She's going to have to maybe do performance management conversations. So is it the tactical side that is going to be the most helpful for Elise, where a chatbot can intervene and be supportive to her? Or is it more helping her during your one-on-ones? Because those are two different problem statements that would be applicable to a new leader like Elise. But going through this exercise helps you kind of clean, like keep it clean of where you're going to want to spend your time and where you're going to want to spend your time first to have that maximum effort and really demonstrate the business case of why a chatbot's going to be useful. So once you get your frame, like, hey, this is who I'm solving for, this is how we can help, is now what's our plan? And what are all the ideas? And this really is that ideation phase. And when you think about the solution and the features of where a chatbot's going to be most useful. And if I had to give you any advice, and you're going to take away one thing, like don't have any constraints. And so like, if you go to the next slide, it's really about quantity and not quality. Think big, because the great thing about the evolution of technology is the things that you maybe thought a chatbot can do, it can do so much more. And it can pull in data. It can foster good dialogue that feels very human. It can bring people together. And so really start to, like, when you have your solution set, and maybe it's the chatbot and other things. Maybe it's live events. Maybe it's talking to a human, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you start to like think big, and all the different pieces of what is going to help Elise can be really reverse engineered into the technology stack and into the chatbot that you designed. And there's a lot of different frames you can use to help you ideate. There's just mass brainstorming, right? Sticky notes on a wall, simply answering that how might we question, right? How might we, I'm reading one of the questions, how might we help Elise get immediate support to tools that she can use in her team meetings, right? That question alone can generate a ton of dialogue, and you can do that with sticky notes or using different collaboration board tools. You can also use some frames to help you think through how you might solution and ideate. And one of them is the 5 moments of need. This is not mine. This is Mosher and Gottfridson's, where it's, you think about from a new manager perspective, right, which is our persona. What does she need to learn new for the first time? So she has different moments of need over the course of her work. What does she need to go do more of? Where does she need to apply? Where do things get messed up and she needs to deviate and resolve an issue? And so this could be a really great framing tool for you to help you ideate and get out of your own head. Because again, we have a ton of experience. You're here for a really good reason, and you're probably coming with some experience, especially those who have developed chatbots before. And so a frame to help you ideate can sometimes help you unlock things that you might not be thinking of, and what others might be seeing that you're missing. Another frame is what's from the Neuro Leadership Institute on the AGES model, attention, generating insights, emotions. Again, just something else where you can say, what can we do that's spaced over time? So again, think about a chatbot, different pushes. What are ways the chatbot can generate an emotional response? We'll talk about KenBot in a little bit, but one of the most popular, most liked pieces are inspirational quotes, right? Not the learning content, but it's inspire me, because it appeals to their emotional desire to learn and to want to be useful to the world. How do we generate their attention? There's a ton of noise, right? We got a lot of text messages. To Peter's point, I read through my daughter's threads and I call it the news at home, and it is a lot. So how do I, if Maddie interacts with a chatbot, how do I make sure it's going to grab her attention and she's going to engage, for instance? And how do we do this over time, right? This isn't, the beauty about a chatbot is it, in a programmatic chatbot, is you can really think about how do they scaffold what they learned, whether it's on the, after a learning journey, whether it's again a role change, like in the case of Elise, and what are the things that we can do. And again, when you use a frame like this to tee up ideation, and you're going to start to see the different features. So another one too, that's probably one of my favorite, is the worst possible idea. And so you think about Elise, what is the worst thing we can do for Elise that's going to like make her life terrible? with a chatbot. And, 1,000 pushes a day, giving her 1,000 tools, whatever that might look like. And those, because again, we've all probably interacted with that worst possible idea. And that can just help you say, if this is the worst, let's do some opposite thinking and what is best. So there's just a ton of ideation activities out there. These are just 3 that can just help you think about, again, before you start scripting and planning, what are the things you want to evoke, in this case for Elise. So let's do a little bit of an activity. We have plenty of time. And so let's think back to Elise. I'm going to put the 4 questions, even though I'm going to probably send them separately, so you're not like super chat blasted at once. I would love us to think about, in the frame of our new leader, Elise, I'm going to add those 4 questions that we have, those 4 how might we questions. And so let's just do a couple minute chat blast, just simply answering these questions for her of where a chatbot might be supportive. So how might we help her improve engagement scores? So whichever one you kind of feel most like jazzed about, feel free to answer that. And again, kind of ideate, where might a chatbot help Elise have, in essence, better days at her new job? Yeah, some training, some access to training content. What else? Yeah, resource recommender. Hey, we're new. You're new. I bet you need to learn how to submit SMART goals. Access to support documentation. You betcha. Yeah, Vince, sharing the best practices. What are other managers doing that works? Ah, Mark, I love that. Connecting with experienced leaders, like almost finding, a mentorship program, access to a coach. Tracy kind of identified that inspirational side. You're doing great. We know this is new. I'm here to help you.
I really like that, Kevin, helping her recognize her own success, because I think that's so hard to do yourself sometimes.
Oh, I like what Melena also said. Say that company is going through some major change, right? Like a new ERP or a new software. What are tools that she can do to help having concerns conversations? So different prompts,
Yes.
poll questions. Yeah, help her build
So many good
relationships.
ideas.
So many good ideas. We need to go build a chatbot for Elise right away. But notice how how the ideas just naturally flow, versus if we just sat in a room and said, we need a chatbot for new leaders. We have 5,000 new leaders come into our organization for some massive company. We might have some of these ideas might come, but certainly not all of these, because we're thinking about her. And so, we can go to slide 25, Cori. Here's just some of the ones that we came up with, which you guys mentioned a whole bunch of them, helping her avoid call somebody. Nah, not just you. Yeah, but even like calendar reminders, right? Have you placed one-on-ones in your calendar with your people? Not necessarily that's a new task for a new leader. I know, Lisa, you mentioned polls and short quizzes, those sticky situations. Choose your tool. I love that, Robin. Like, here's all the things, like top 10 things that help managers. Oh, guys are back to those empathy actions. That's right. Yeah, we know this is a lot, and we're here to help. Awesome. Nice job, guys.
Darren.
That's right. Well, and funny enough, again, the inspirational piece, like Giphies and keeping it light, not taking ourselves too seriously. There's definitely something to that.
Mhm. Yep, TikTok is certainly short and bite-sized.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Well, now that we've had a really good opportunity to think about what the chatbot could include, I want us all to now take just a couple of minutes and try out this demo together. So on the screen, there's information about the chatbot, but I also just put it in the chat. So this is a demo of KenBot, which is a chatbot that reinforces training from the SL2 program that Britney and I actually built together a number of years ago. But I think this is a great example of what it can be like to experience a chatbot reinforcing knowledge. So if you want to try it on Teams, you'll click that link and it should open up Teams for you and a conversation with KenBot, and you're just going to say hi. Or if you'd like to try it on SMS, you take out your phone, open a blank text message, put in that phone number, and then say hi. And if anyone, while I was talking, has already tried it, please let me know that it worked, or if it didn't. I tested them both earlier today, but I always get nervous that something happened in the meantime. Awesome. Thank you,
I got a couple quotes already, so that works. There you go.
Perfect. Great. So this is kind of a quicker example of what a chatbot could do. So it's just going to show you, I think, 3 or 4 examples, and then you can also pull resources. But we've talked a lot about the concept, so now it can be really helpful to see what it's like from a user perspective. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for letting me know it's working. Okay, so I'm going to give you maybe another minute just to play along, and afterwards you can feel free to kind of keep playing, or it'll stick around if you want to keep trying it out after this call. And the demo will keep working if you want to try it later or share it with anyone.
All right. Well, should we start to think about, now that we sort of, we know Elise, we kind of know what we want to solve for her, we have some great ideas. Now, finally, we can start to kind of put pen to paper and say, what does this look like? And I just want to give a huge shout out to mobile coaching team, as you've really honed on some really great tools and ways to sort of plan out and script. So Cori, I'll tee you up as you can talk about what are best practices as you actually build what your bot is going to do and support for, say, someone like Elise.
Yes. So we have so many brainstormed ideas. Now it's time to take all of those ideas and lay them out. So I normally suggest going from our big idea list to creating just a concept of what this conversation will look like over time. So here's a great example of just kind of storyboarding out that journey. And you can use something like sticky notes where you just move them around, or just however it helps you think about the experience, and just kind of think about, okay, someone leaves. So Elise, let's say, leaves her new manager training, and the Monday afterwards, we want to immediately follow up with her. What would that look like? So we're going to think about all the ideas that we brainstormed and say, okay, what would be most helpful to happen right away? And then on that Thursday, what do we do after that? So we're going to kind of lay out all of the ideas and also think about, where is she accessing this? Is it on Teams? Is it on SMS? What is the easiest way for Elise to get these resources? And who is she talking to? So everyone just had an experience with KenBot, but for Elise's organization, she's a new manager, so maybe it might be a little more comfortable to talk to someone who feels like a peer, who, kind of has gone through something similar. So we were crafting a chatbot that feels like a peer. We'll send gifts, we'll send something relatable, and it's maybe a little bit more fun of a personality. And And then we're going to take all of that. So we kind of have our concept of what our conversation is going to look like. And we're going to lay, okay, that's a little fuzzy. Sorry, took a screenshot of the Chatbot script. But we're basically going to take all of that and turn it into a full-on conversational script. So this is the Chatbot script where I have the initial message, which everyone that tried it received, where the chatbot says, "Hi, I'm Chatbot." So we're gonna be very detailed, and we're gonna say what is each message, and when Elise responds, so if, for example, we ask her, "Have you set up one-on-one meetings with your direct reports?" And she says no. What is the response to no? If she would have said yes, what is the response to yes? So we're going to go down all of those different conversational paths as we script it out. And then after we've kind of written it out, we would set up the chatbot. And then at that phase, I suggest very thorough testing yourself and anyone else who is kind of maybe like team members, to try it out. Yeah, break the bot. So this is a great place where you're going to come up with like, oh, it should do this. Now that I'm seeing it, I want it to do something totally different, or I'm realizing these messages feel a little stale. Let's change the wording a little bit. And then once that's happened, we're going to launch it out to our new leaders. Everyone's going to try it. And then at that point, we don't end there. We're going to want to get feedback. So we're going to want to continue to improve the experience. And chatbots are a great place for iteration because they're really easy to update. So I always suggest that the first chatbot, you just expect that first version you send out to not be the last. That is kind of the first. That is version 1, and we're going to keep getting better from there. So these are some suggestions of how do we gather feedback. A chatbot is a natural survey tool, so it's very easy within the chatbot to ask survey questions throughout or at the end of an experience. So you can ask just general survey questions like the one on the screen where it's a 1 to 5 scale. How did the chatbot do? And I often suggest pairing something like that with an open-ended question where we're kind of soliciting additional feedback. So this person said 3. So then the chatbot asked this open-ended question of what was the most helpful part? And then after they respond, it could say, okay, and what could have been better? What else did you need? And that can be an incredible resource because we spent all of that time brainstorming and thinking of our problem statements, but now we're getting the real feedback from the humans involved. So we want to listen to them and we want to solicit that feedback. And then you can get only so much feedback from inside the chatbot. So we also want to look outside of the chatbot. So a really easy way is to do an extended survey. So you just email out and say, hey, here's a longer survey about the chatbot, please fill it out. But 2 other options that I found that can be really helpful are either setting up just a quick focus group. This only needs to take 15, 20 minutes. But if you just bring together some of the people that have experienced the chatbot and just have them brainstorm, ask them questions, and find out what worked and what didn't, that can be game-changing for improving the experience, especially because we found that there's kind of 2 groups of users. One group where they're kind of power users and they've really used the chatbot a lot. And so from their messages, you probably already know a lot about them. But then there's going to be another group of users that you maybe didn't hit the mark. It wasn't as helpful, or maybe they were too busy. And so they didn't use the chatbot as much. And that is the group that is just so helpful to go outside of the chatbot and get their feedback, learn from them what happened and what worked and what didn't. Yes.
Cori, can I add on that too? I think this goes back into what are the mechanisms, inside and even outside the chatbot to draw people in. Because if many of you, I'm not sure, but I know the names I recognize, we work in the corporate learning and development industry. And so when you talk to your business partners or your clients, there's always a really, there's a lot of energy around sustainment or training reinforcement, but it's a lot harder than it looks because people have lives and people have work. And when they're not butts in seats or butts on eyes, there's a ton of distractions in their lives. And so we sometimes have this question like, we built it, why didn't they come? And it's not always because of the design. And it's not always because of the form and function, whether it's Teams or SMS or Slack or anything else. But it's almost like, again, looking back at Elise and thinking about her and what gets in her way, she just might have so much and she might have forgotten that it exists. And so what are the tools? What are the ways you can bring her back in? What are the things that we can help Elise's manager reinforce? We find, whether it's the design or it's the delivery, but if your manager has involvement, is connected, you're more likely to engage with it. And so what are the different ways, even outside of Elise Direct or within the chatbot, that you can think about the overall system that's going to support her so she can meet those outcomes, so she can have better conversations with her people and they're more engaged, so she can get the tools she needs and avoids making a phone call to the help desk where she potentially is on hold for a long time. And so it might be more too holistic and systemic that you have to start to think about when you start to get that kind of feedback.
Yes, thank you. I think that's it on this one. And for everything we did.
We're efficient. We are an efficient bunch. We know what it means to be late to meetings. And so we knew we wanted to honor your time and give you a chance to go get some water and, ask questions. We'll do that too.
Yes. Yeah. So before we end, any questions from anyone or anything you'd like to go into more detail about? Yeah. Stack break. Oh, yes. Join us on social. I didn't mention when I showed the first the screen with our faces, but these are our LinkedIn profiles. So please connect with us. We're practicing being on LinkedIn. I am not the greatest. I feel like Brittany's really doing a great job.
It's not a natural tendency, but I will connect with you and drive a great conversation.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. It doesn't look like anyone has questions, but if you're typing one, I'll give it a little longer if you're thinking or typing. Otherwise, we can have the gift of time back.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Dan. More on tools to create chatbots. Well, Mobile Coach is an amazing authoring tool.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you want to talk about tools, I'm happy to kind of show you Mobile Coach or, talk options.
Yeah.
Yes, there are definitely others. You know what?
Oh, Peter asked, what are some 3 no-goes for chatbots?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It's interesting because it might be it could be fairly organizational. Some really don't like the push and it's all pull. And it's only when you engage or you ask. And so that finding that right balance of how much does the chatbot push and reminds and how much is too much versus how much is little. So it's really, that's as part of your feedback cycle, really kind of litmus testing people's willingness to be asked for inputs.
I think another no-go is being too clever. I've seen people create conversations with no, people will get it. We can, I'm trying to think of an example, but where maybe you don't explain things fully or use a lot of shorthand in the chatbot, just assuming that everyone at the organization understands what you're saying. And that doesn't come across very well. And when people just don't understand, chatbot messages are very fast, they're very quick. And so when they're just not understanding what's happening, they're very likely to tune out. So I think trying to make the conversation accessible for everyone is really important, because at the end of the day, it is conversational at its base. So if they don't like the conversation, they're not going to listen.
Yeah, good point. I even thought when you said there's two things that came up. One is, your primary medium, you can get away with longer messages in Teams versus an SMS. You don't have as much real estate to go off of. And so really even thinking about your primary audience and how they're going to interact with the chatbot will determine how long your messages are, how many you send. Although again, I see my daughter's text messages and they're like this long. So maybe that's a generational area that we can, because that clearly doesn't bother her when it's like 500 words long in a single chat.
I think motivation goes into that though. She wants to talk with her friends that long, but yeah, she may not care for a chatbot to do it.
Exactly.
All right, what was your second?
The other one was, and I'd be so curious on your take. And so I've named chatbots before. So Kenbot, right? Pretty like, we know Kenbot's a bot because it's Kenbot. That's not Ken. And in a previous life, I recall naming a bot like a feminine name. It was like Ellie, or it was like some derivative of the whatever the product was. And feedback that we got was someone thought that was an actual human, and it got someone in hot water because they were having a text message conversation with someone else. And so I'd be so curious on like how you approach personifying the bots, because I always think back of that story where, I don't know, some poor bloke got maybe a bad conversation with his partner about Ellie the bot.
I think I remember that story. It's very memorable. I think for the person interacting with the chatbot, we always want to make it clear this is a chatbot. And there's kind of like a balance of, we want this to feel conversational. So we don't want it to feel robotic. We want it to feel very natural, but we also want them to understand and have good expectations of this is what it's capable of doing, because it's not a person. It's not going to be able to answer anything or respond to anything. So then people are much more willing to appropriately communicate with the chatbot when they understand that it's a chatbot. I mean appropriate in two different ways now. I'm realizing I initially meant just when it asks a yes or no question, saying yes or no, but I guess there's also another meaning to that.
Sorry, Peter, it wasn't funny at the time.
It wasn't.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks for taking an hour of your day. I don't take that for granted. We're busy people, got busy lives. So thanks for jamming with us.
Yes, thank you. And I'll send out the recording later today with the slides. So look for that from me.
Good to see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.